Hey there, and welcome to my channel, the Paper Bag Investor. Today's video, I want to look at Lemonade and their insider selling and try and explain to you guys what is going on. I know a lot of people have been wondering, a lot of people have been kind of freaking out or scared because it certainly looks like a lot of the insiders at Lemonade are selling their shares in the stock. Is that true? Is that not true? What's really going on? That's what we're going to try and get to the bottom of in this video. It's obviously really important as an investor to know whether the insiders are selling their shares or not, as it's going to signal what their belief in the long-term future of the company is and the current share price. So in this video, we're going to look at 5 things. We're going to look at Daniel Schreiber, the CEO of Lemonade. We're going to look at some recent tweets. We're going to look at what a 10b5-1 plan is for insider selling. We're going to look at number 3. We're going to look at Lemonade share structuring from their S1 filing. Number 4, we're going to look at how many shares have been bought or sold by the Lemonade co-founders Daniel Schreiber and Shai Wininger. And then finally, make sure you stick around to the end because I will be giving my take or my thoughts on all of this and whether or not this prompts me to buy more Lemonade, hold the current shares I do own, or sell the stock if there's really red flags. So stick around to the end for that to see what my take is on all of this. So let's get into it. And before we go any further, I just want to make it absolutely clear, I'm not a personal financial advisor, just a guy with a paper bag on his head who loves investing and thinking about the future. If you love investing and thinking about the future, you want to follow along with my channel as it grows, and then I encourage you to hit that subscribe button down below and follow along with my channel. I've been investing since about 2008, have averaged approximately a 30% compound annual growth rate since that time, and I hope to continue to achieve that or maybe even do better. Well, who knows? Or get close to that in the next 10 years, and I want to help you guys do the same. So make sure you hit that subscribe button if you get value out of this video. Okay, so first off, we're going to look at Daniel Schreiber's tweets about Lemonade from the other day. So this is my Twitter. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I am there at paperbaginvest, so you can definitely do that. Daniel Schreiber replied to somebody else, and he said, "Thanks for the question and concern. I totally get it. Please know that for both Shai and I, the overwhelming majority of our net worth is invested in Lemonade, and we don't expect that to change anytime soon. We're long Lemonade," he said, tweet 1 of 3. So the next one he said, "Important to know that insider sales are generally triggered algorithmically, automatically by 10b5-1 plans that have been in place for some time. When Lemonade appreciated fast, that resulted in what looked like concentrated selling, but that's more noise than signal. Also, for what it's worth, an overwhelming majority of our board members reported selling is actually their funds. They are venture capitalists distributing their shares to their investors. Not a sale at all. Again, noise, not signal." So those are his recent tweets in a reply to somebody asking what was going on with the insider selling. If you aren't familiar with what a 10b5-1 plan is, I'm going to just briefly talk about that. So a 10b5-1 plan allows company insiders to make predetermined trades while following insider trading laws and avoid insider trading accusations. It is recommended that companies permit an executive to either adopt and amend their plan, and it stops any insiders from changing or adopting a plan if they're in possession of material non-public information. So all this basically is saying that the people set up, public companies will set up a 10b5-1 plan when the company's going public, and then it basically helps remove any uncertainty or confusion about why executives or insiders might be selling as the company hits certain thresholds, and Lemonade stock has risen quite dramatically, quite quickly, probably faster than their insiders thought it would. Then these certain thresholds get triggered and selling occurs. So that kind of makes sense. It's giving some transparency to the process or what people's plans are, some upfront transparency. Okay, then we're going to look briefly at their S1 filing. Okay, so Lemonade's S1 filing, and this is going to help us understand a little bit about the share structuring because it's quite confusing. I've seen different people on Twitter, on the internet, on Reddit, on different blogs. They're saying, okay, Lemonade insider selling, this is a disaster. They went from 800,000 shares, the CEO, Daniel Schreiber, for example, down to 50,000 shares. Like, obviously, he thinks that the stock's way overvalued. And so as an investor, that's a huge, huge red flag. But this is going to help us understand a little bit more detail why some of those, that 800,000 number, I'm not sure where that came from, but that number is incorrect. Okay, so if you look at Daniel Schreiber, for example, it's saying he actually has exposure to about 15 million shares, and then some more in the offering. It's a little bit confusing. Doesn't mean he owns 15 million shares. And we're going to go down to this footnote number 1. So it says he's the CEO and a member of our board of directors. He owns a certain number of shares of common stock, his own personal shares, and then he owns about 2.6 million, it says here, held by Dan & Dan Limited. So that's his own holding company, is my understanding. And then it says he actually owns about this 11.9 million, almost 12 million shares held by SoftBank. And he's, it says basically him together with Mr. Winninger and this other guy, Mr. Nyata, they form a committee that is in charge of these shares by SoftBank. I'm not exactly sure if any of the three of these people, I'm not sure exactly how many of their shares, if any of these shares, each of these three individuals actually own, or if it's just all owned entirely by SoftBank, or if they each own some of the shares by SoftBank, but they control collectively the voting rights for these shares. So you can kind of see that listed. There's 11.9 million shares here. For example, if we look at Shai Winninger, number 9, footnote 9, we're going to go down to that. It says he owns about 3.3 million shares of common stock, and then again that 11.9 million shares held by SoftBank. And it basically explains that same structure again. There's these three people that are in charge of these shares. So that kind of gives you a picture that for Daniel, he has some shares in the Dan & Dan Limited, some personal shares, and then some held by SoftBank. For Shai, he has some personal shares and then the rest held by SoftBank. And now we're going to look at some of the SEC filings. And if you look back for Daniel, if we go all the way back, this is actually the best place to look up insider buying and selling. Just from the SEC, they have sec.report. And if you look up a company, you can look up their insiders buying and selling. And we're going to look down, and even for an individual. So this is Daniel's report. We go down to the bottom, so back to July 2nd. Which was about a week after they went public. He actually shows, it might have differed a little bit from their S1 filings, exactly how it was structured or layered again, but it has about 11.9 million shares indirectly owned, 1.65 million shares indirectly owned. That would be his Dan & Dan Limited, and then it shows, what are we at here? 1.8 million shares directly owned. And you can click on this link here on any of these here, and it'll actually show you the full report. So we're going to scroll down into that. So it shows you very crystal clear here. He owns 1.8 million, 1.6 million, and about almost 12 million. This is directly held by Dan & Dan Limited, which explains here he's the CEO of Dan & Dan Limited. And then it's also that 11.9 million owned by SoftBank Group Capital Limited, that pool of shares again. So it kind of gives you that picture there. And then if we scroll all the way to the top, there's lots of buying and selling. We're going to go to the most recent report on January 21st. We're going to open up that one. And after all the buying and selling, you can see following reported transactions, the most recent ones here, he actually owns 50,000 direct and then 2.6 million by Dan & Dan Limited. So that's increased quite a bit. And then still that exact same number, 11.9 million by the SoftBank Group. So that kind of gives you the Daniel report, and I've summarized these in an Excel or a Google Sheets file here. So Daniel Schreiber on July 1st, he had about 1.8 million, and then 1.65 million of Dan & Dan, and then the SoftBank shares, I'm not exactly sure how those are structured. Right now I'm showing them as if he owned a third of those shares. That's probably not the case, but I'm just showing that for the time being, okay? And then a similar story for Shai. I'm going to look at his SEC report. It's here. You can scroll down. He has more kind of transactions, but they're much smaller amounts of shares that have been sold. must be how his 10b5-1 plan is structured, because most of these sales, I looked through lots of these, and almost all of them they're of the 10b5-1 nature. If you look in the report, it actually says the reason why they're sold, and that will be the listed reason. So for Shy, it kind of has his initial shares back in July, and then his most recent selling report here. I looked at this from December 28th. I'm going to open that one up. And if you go down again, how many are owned at the end of it all? If you look at the final line here directly, you have about 3.3 million. And again, SoftBank 11.98 million. And if you look here, this number 1 code S, and there's a 1 beside it for the reason, the transaction code, and then you look down, it might be hard for you to read, but it says represented sale pursuant to Rule 10b5-1 trading plan. So again, I'm not going to go through them all, but I think pretty much all of the reports I saw were for this reason, for the 2 co-founders at least. I didn't look into every insider, but I think what's most important is what the co-founders are doing. So I've summarized that here on this table, what they've bought, what they've sold for Dan and Shai. And if you look at it here, we have this 1.8 million personally, 1.6 million. Again, a third of that 12 million is just about 4 million, and you have total shares of 7.5 million. Again, I don't know if this is actually the amount he would own, if any, but I'm going to kind of go through that scenario in a moment. And then now, as of January 21st, that's from this gone from 1.8 million to 50,000, which is a 97% drop, which is, I think, what's really freaked some people out, is kind of seeing that huge change. And then for the Dan and Dan Limited, his holding company, a lot of those shares just got moved into the Dan and Dan Limited. So that went from 1.6 million to 2.6 million. Actually went up 61% overall, and then this one remains unchanged. And overall, when you total these up and you see the difference, he's actually, in this scenario, if he owns some of these, he only sold about 11% of his shares. So not, I would say 11%, for you to see how quickly the shares or the share price of Lemonade has risen, I would say that's not a big deal, not a major concern. Also for Shy, similar story, 3.9 million shares personally. If he owns those SoftBank shares, he has about 4 million shares and just under, about 7.8 million, 7.9 million shares in total. Again, he sold some short shares. This is the difference up at December 28th, 13% drop. This one, 0% drop. Overall, it would be a 7% drop. Now, what if they don't own any of these SoftBank shares? What if they're owned entirely by SoftBank and they just help control the voting rights and represent them? That's very a good chance that could be the case. So I'm just going to type in, if that's the case, we have 11%, 7% in this scenario. But if that's the case, you have 0% here, and then you'd have 0% here, and you'd have a 24% drop. So more significant drop overall, but again, not crazy drop, but 24%, significant, but not crazy. And again, for Shy, if this one is 0, SA owns 0 shares there, and of course still owns 0 of those shares, you'd have a 13% drop. So, again, even if that's the case, or even if it's somewhere between those scenarios, they're not, to me, this is not major insider selling. We're talking 24% for Daniel, the CEO, and 13% for Shy. It's definitely not nothing, but you're still owning 76% of your shares, and 87% of your shares you're still owning and holding. And we're talking about, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars here, then you can totally understand why a person might want to lock in a certain amount lock in those profits immediately. Then no matter what happens with this business venture, they know they have that huge sum of money locked in, and maybe they can personally even diversify that in different ways and still be heavily invested in the company of Lemonade and in its future. So to me, not significant insider selling, and that's very, very positive thing. So again, you might be wondering, what do I think about all this? Since pretty much all the transactions I could see, especially for these 2 co-founders, were sold through a 10b5-1 plan, that helps reassure me that these are probably just a scenario where the stock rose in value much faster than they would have even imagined. And the overall percentage of shares sold by the 2 co-founders really wasn't significant enough to scare me in any ways. If anything, it's a very, very, very positive sign that I don't think they've actually sold that much of their shares. So for me, this is really positive news as a Lemonade investor, and gives me more confidence in Lemonade as an investor. It's one of the stocks I'm most excited about, and I'll probably be looking to add more of it to my portfolio. I definitely will be looking to add more of it to my portfolio. So I hope that helps give you clarity about your own investing and your own investing decisions around Lemonade. If you got value out of this video, please hit that subscribe button down below. Also hit that thumbs up, helps the YouTube algorithm, helps me grow. If you know somebody else who's invested in Lemonade or thinking about it, be sure to share this with them if they might get value out of this as well. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Cheers.